Never seen a smile so big on my little Lord lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Good evening, CFNers. We have great representation. We got Trisha down in Windsor. How you doing, Trisha? Tony's up in Sault Ste. Marie. Brad Frost is here in Ontario. Lloyd is out in Saskatchewan. How you doing, Lloyd? Adele is down in Etobicoke. Rob is also out in Saskatchewan. Good to see you tonight, Rob. James is down in Port Credit. Steve Shaw is out in the Oshawa area. Alicia, not sure exactly where you live, but I know you're out towards Jason Barnucz's way, out in the western part of Ontario. So hello to you. Rocky Ellison, Richard Dunlop just showed me your pic of you and your daughter. CFN proud, baby. That is awesome. Kevin Lowe in Manitoba. Look at this, man. I tell you, we are rocking it tonight. Anthony Stevenson up in the Barrie area. Good to see you, my friend. Joe Moore, nice to see you. Look at this, coast to coast. We got David Craig out in BC, and we have Rob Nickerson out in our East Coast. So right now, as it is, across Canada, coast to coast, it's hockey. No, I'm kidding. It's CFN tonight. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Dan Beecroft, absolutely. We're going to be getting to Bryon very shortly. And when you guys listen to what this gentleman is embarking on, CFN is going to get behind this 110%. I guarantee you. But we have loads of announcements. Delaware near London. Thanks, Alicia. I wasn't 100% sure. Brian was watching. Belleville. Very nice. Good to see you, Karen. Thanks for joining us tonight. And everybody is anticipating Bryon coming on. So I'm going to get to the announcements right away so we can get these over with. But there are tons tonight. So strap on and let's get started. Everybody has been asking about the CFN Fish Off. And, of course, when is it going to start? So Mike and the judges last night had it was about a 5-hour conversation, and they discussed a whole truckload of stuff in regards to how the CFN Fish Off is going to look this year. And, of course, it's going to be different because of COVID, right? Can't be exactly the same because I don't think COVID's going to allow that to happen. And I know Jason Barnucz is going to be talking about that later on in his segment. So let's just take a step back, pump the brakes, and we have to take everything into an account before we launch the CFN Fish Off. But I can guarantee you there is a hard date that has now been set. Spoke to Mike today. There's a bunch of stuff that we want to bring to you guys tomorrow. So I invite you to stay tuned tomorrow on the CFN Fish Off page at 7 o'clock. Mike and I will be discussing a bunch of things. And, of course, one of the things that the judges, or many of the things that the judges went over in their 5-hour discussion, of course, was a lot of feedback from you guys, from the participants. And I'll be honest with you, name another online multi-species tournament that will listen to its participants on how to make it better, because we want to make it better for you guys, right? Better for the sponsors. At the end of the day, if everybody enjoys themselves and loves being a part of it, it's a win-win for the sponsors, for CFN, and, of course, you guys, the participants. So we listened to a lot of your feedback, and Mike and I will be discussing some of the stuff that was brought up during their 5-hour conversation. Andrew Sturch is from Kingston. Good to see you. Michelle Jacobs in the house. How you doing, Michelle? Habs versus Leafs. Go Habs. We won't hold that against you, Michelle. We still love you. Lawrence, talk to you soon, guys. Good. I didn't see you in the bottom here, so looking forward to that. Rachel's in the house. How you doing? Derek, there's a lot of Bryon contingents here. A lot of Sturch contingent. I love it. This Thursday will be very cool. That will be tomorrow with Mike. Thursday will be cool because it will be the first official virtual grand opening of a brand new tackle store. We are going to be featuring it right here on CFN. Can't thank Jason Barnucz enough for getting us in touch with the owner of this new tackle shop, and it's kind of a unique tackle shop. And I'm gonna save it for Thursday. You guys are gonna want to tune in to Thursday. What makes this tackle shop unique? And it is really kind of cool. Gord Trask is the owner, and he will be joining us at 7 p.m. on Thursday to give us a tour of this very unique, as I mentioned, tackle store, and we're looking forward to that. Very, very cool. So again, that's Thursday, and I'll tell you, this weekend is going to be a busy one. It's going to be real busy. I think Jim might actually have a bit of an announcement when he comes on in his segment too of an upcoming Friday. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You guys are going to want to listen to that, but I know it's in the works, and Jim's going to unveil that. But this weekend is the Muskie Odyssey show. And I'll tell you, there is an awful lot of work. In fact, they're having a production meeting as we speak right now. All the presenters, all of the producers are discussing things. Unfortunately, Mondays, it's near and dear to my heart. I got to spend my Mondays with you guys. So I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be. But what I wanted to do was show you a little bit of a sneak peek of who's involved with the Muskie Odyssey, and a few behind-the-scenes tackle shops, tackle producers, guides, charter captains, a whole whack of stuff. And this is just a gamut of some of the great people that are going to be involved in this Muskie's Odyssey this weekend. Have a look. So, yes, Muskies Canada. Thanks, Steve, for the link. Stay tuned. This is going to be quite the show. And Bill, as Bill said, if you are a muskie angler, this is a must-see for you. As you can tell, this is going to be huge. And I'm honored. I've got 5 sessions that I'm going to be helping produce, and one of which is Yvonne's session, which is the ladies' session. And I'm very honored to be a part of that. I think we're going to do a bang-up job. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a silent auction, which is going to be it's obviously going to raise money for the nonprofit group that Muskies Canada is, for great muskie rehabilitation, habitat restoration, and you name it. Anything to do with muskie, they're going to be spending money on. So anything and everything helps build a better muskie fishery. And this weekend is a great start, great step in the right direction. So let's tune in. Let's hopefully help out. And if there's a chance that some of you, like Adele, are looking to hook your first muskie, this would be the place to start. Great place to start. Christina, you had a great comment up here. Would be great if CFN had a tackle store website where sponsors could put their products to purchase all on one website. It's coming. That's all I could say. Moose and I are in the midst of putting something together. It'll be OFC Nation, which is going to encompass both communities, both CFN and OFC. So I will beg you to stay tuned. It's a very busy place, and we can only get so much done at a time, but we are definitely working on it. So it'll be a great thing for our sponsors. It'll be a great thing for you guys at CFN, as well as OFC and OFC Nation. Birthdays, last announcement, birthdays. Crystal Valet, our Northern Ontario ambassador, she celebrated a birthday on the weekend and vows that this will be the last summer. We're going to hold her to it. This will be the last summer that she uses her Cinderella rod, her favorite Cinderella rod, because as she says, she's a big girl now. So happy birthday to Christelle, and for all you do to CFN and Typers Bait and Tackle up in Hearst. We wish you a happy birthday. Rob Jackson's birthday was last Friday, a few days ago, but I wanted to wish Rob a happy birthday. He's done a lot of great things for CFN in the past, and supports this community immensely. We don't see a lot of Rob, unfortunately, because he's a busy guy, but I know somewhere in his heart he's got a soft spot for CFN. So let's wish Rob a happy birthday if you haven't already. And Shannon Desjardins is celebrating a birthday tomorrow. So is Mike Goudreau and Eric Hall. So we wish you guys just the night before, a happy birthday. So at midnight, you're on, and hopefully you guys are all done with the sippy cups and soothers. And as you are, Christelle, hopefully you're big boys now. CFNers Jamie Hicks, Sal, I love fishing the fjord Chambry, Jada Cody, James Reed Asplin, Brennan Kayan, Eric Thornton, and Robert McKnight. Robert McKnight, the entire Robert McKnight family. They're all celebrating birthdays this coming week. So we wish you all a happy birthday, and hope many more returns to your days. And hopefully we all get a chance to see each other someday out on the water. But again, Jay and I are going to be talking about that in his upcoming segment in regards to how that's going to look, how we can approach it, and if anything has actually changed. So stay tuned to that. But before we get there, we got to start with the favorite video. I swear this is the favorite video of all time. It's what gets me going. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of people going when it comes to getting ready for the hard water season. Here comes Jim. Did we forget your birthday, Jim? Was it your anniversary? I forgot. Oh, it was the anniversary of your big win.
Oh,
What?
I lost my crappy crankbait.
Oh, everybody,
I don't know what to do.
And repeat after me, Jim. We are so sorry that you lost your small crankbait. Let's all hope that it was a big trophy fish that one day you will recapture and hopefully get your bait back. Amen.
It was a 52-pounder.
Oh, beast. Well, how many years have you had that crankbait?
5 years. And I can't even, it came in a press kit thing and no name. There's no name on, like there was no name on it. Like everything, I had looked over it several times to try and get something. And then I just started thinking after a while, I'll never lose it. And I was down with Tammy on Saturday night. It was just beautiful. And we're down there just before it got dark. And I caught a few real nice ones. I caught a couple that were like, 13 3/4. Like they were just absolute slob females, eh? Like they're looking for somewhere to dump the eggs soon, eh? Like another 3 weeks probably or so. But it was just really, really cool to watch a big pike just swoop in and just you could just see him eat it. All I saw was a big white mouth, and it was gone. I had him on for a few minutes too, going around. And I thought, I'm just going to ease him up to the side, and the water's over the seawall at the far end. And I was just going to slide him up on the bank, and everything would have been good, eh? But I couldn't see the lure, so I knew it was inside, probably in the roof of his mouth. It's just, the little bait I showed you before.
Yeah.
And
but what's so cool, and we've got a few CFNers that do this on a regular basis. I know Sean was up with Alain Moran, and they were fishing the Matagami River for sturgeon, but we have a lot of CFNers that fish that have the ability to fish in their backyard, like you do, Jim. And obviously with COVID and everything that's going on in the world, we have to utilize that. And you know what? Maybe take a little bit more time and explore it. But it's awesome to see you having the kind of fun you are in your own backyard. Yeah,
it's really cool. Like I talked to you before about when we thought about selling the house here because we know we could, run away with a big bag of money right now, but there's nowhere else that you can get a home over in this area that would eat all the money up to have just to get what we want now. So it just really doesn't make any sense.
No, and I'm so glad you're sticking around because I do like that spot that you're on. It's a great body of water, great little bait.
You'll be back.
I can't wait, dude. I'll tell you, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Doors open for you, pal. Once it's safe.
Well, listen, and on that note, it's a great segue to our guests, and you are you got a big heart, and you brought this gentleman to me. You had no problem sharing your segment today to discuss it. Obviously, have you known this gentleman for a while, or did he just approach you?
Just through Facebook a bit. We never really spoke before. And I don't think we did. I'm not sure. I have a lot of people send me messages. I could have. I'm not sure, but I was well aware of him. Yeah. And because I know he catches some pretty damn big fish, but and lots of them. But it's just like when I heard it, I just thought, for what he wants to do, there was just no better place for it, possibly to go. And he said, well, I'll get in touch with Scotty, and obviously he did. So it's really good.
Well, you know what? We're honored that you brought this gentleman to us. And just before we do, we just wanted to make an announcement. Apparently, it's coming through here on the wire. It's unofficial, but the 2023 CFN retreat is in Jim's backyard. Right on.
Yes.
It's unofficial.
There's only one chair, though.
So, as I said, going on with this, I was blown away. And Jay has brought some stuff to me. Lawrence has brought some stuff to me. You have done the exact same. And I think it's honestly really cool that we are thought of as the platform through which, guys like this can bring something and we can help them out. But I'll tell you, it is an absolute honor. So let us bring in the honored guest tonight. There he is, Bryon Sturch. How you doing, my friend?
Not bad. And yourself?
Well, never as good as you, but I'll keep trying because I'll tell you, anything that I have done it will pale in comparison to some of the stuff that you and I have spoken about with regards to this endeavor. And I wanted to bring up something to show everybody. When Jim says you catch big fish, yeah, that is a beast of a muskie. Unbelievable.
52 and a half.
Anyways, tell us the story. You reached out to Jim. You had this idea. It's sort of gaining traction. You reach out to Jim and then take it from there.
Yeah. So I was going to give away muskie stuff to kids that are getting into muskie fishing. I got a lot of leftover muskie equipment, and I was approached by Jamie from Pro Advantage to maybe I should auction the stuff off and buy rods and reels for kids that are in need. So I approached Jim, and we had a little chat on Facebook, and he mentioned your name and told me to get in contact with you. So I figured, what do I got to lose? And here I am.
Well, to obviously this is it brings a tear to your eye because it's not often that you see this kind of stuff from everybody. I mean, the gentleman that taught me how to have a big heart is sitting right there beside me, Big Jim, and everybody knows in the industry the heart he has. But the reason you want to do this, and I think this is something that I hope you can redo exactly the conversation that we had on how you described what brought you to wanting to do this. Your upbringing was had some hills and valleys, let's say, and you struggled with some depression and some anxiety. And you took to fishing, and I think a lot of us can say the same. Tell us a little bit about the history of what brought you to where you are now.
So basically, when I was younger, my father passed away. I was about 6 years old. My mom and my two siblings, so there was three of us, didn't have a lot of money, but my uncles and cousins and friends of the family all took us out fishing. That was our easy getaway. So we were given rods and reels and just memories that you just never forget. It was something that I've always had in my heart that I enjoyed. I love fishing. It's been a saving grace for me. And I just wanted to extend that to as many people as I could.
Well, as I said, you're in great company because the guy here with the Shimano hat on has been doing it for most of his career, and if there's anybody we look up to on how to do it properly, is Big Jim. Scotty,
like one of the reasons that I got like that was because when I was younger, there was a lot of people because my dad had alcohol problems, and whatever else, and he wasn't there, and then he was gone. And my mom brought me up, and she did the best that she could with me. I love you, Mom. You're up there. And I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't have, really been into the fishing industry. A couple of times in the beginning that she helped me out tremendously. And, she lived in like a $300 a month or $250 a month apartment, that type of stuff, seniors living. And she, was absolutely instrumental in everything in my life. And she was such a good person. And I had other people that helped me. You remember Bill Safe that used to do rod and reel, her father?
Yes.
Okay. Well, like his son carried on and did it. When I was working at Fishing Buddies in Ottawa, after I got out of my store, he called me and he said, why don't you come down and fish with us? We'll get you on the show. And he got me hooked up with the first people I ever got hooked up with, like as sponsors. Now it's a different thing for me. They're not sponsors; they're like their marketing partners. But it's just I always felt that the things that people did for me, that if you didn't pay it forward, it wasn't going to end up right for you. And it's a wonderful feeling, and I've been doing that for like 40 years. And man, every day things come into my mind. I just wish I had more resources than I have to do the things I like to be able to do more. Like if I ever won the lottery, somebody would have to take the money away from me. I'd be giving it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Well, and Jim, that's a true testament. I think everybody here in the CFN community can attest that that's just the kind of guy you are. And the one thing I will say, Bryon, is you have definitely come to the right community to express your wishes because, as I said, there's a lot of people who pay it forward and pay it back that right now are chiming in with comments. And I'm sure they're dying to know how they can get involved and what it is that really you are hoping to achieve with this initiative.
Okay, so basically what I was starting out to do was to get 10 rods and reels, tackle boxes, and lures for 10 lucky kids. And I've had so many people come forward and donate stuff that we're up to 34 rods and reels now. We also have 14 Spider-Man and Cinderella rods to give away, thanks to Kyle Henderson at Bryon Power Sports. He gave all of those to me. So right now, basically the way that I'm doing it is if you private message me on Facebook, I'm putting everyone down into a list of donators. We'll have whatever, I'll have everything for the donators. And then the people that are trying to nominate kids or have kids that would really benefit from having fishing equipment, we'll be putting a raffle, and yeah, we'll have some winners that.
So the idea was obviously you were just hoping to raise some money to purchase some product to hand out to kids to get them fishing. And what has transpired is exactly what I would expect from our angling community. And we are privileged to be a part of it. But you've got Kyle Henderson, as you mentioned, from Bryon Power Sports that has jumped on board. And, of course, Jamie from Pro Advantage, who has also jumped on and has mentioned that he's going to put some Sienna combos together, which I think is phenomenal. And the idea is you want to give these away, but you also want to raise money through a raffle for some of the products, some guides, some charters, and what have you that have offered up some prizes as well. Tell us a little bit about how that's all going to work, because I know there's a group that is hopefully going to help you put this raffle together.
So hopefully I got donations from a pile of people right now. Just to name a few: Frank Thurston, Bruce Garnett, just to name a couple of the guys, John Anderson. They've all come forward with baits to raffle off, and we're going to try and put a raffle together for the 24th of April on Muskie Trader Canada. And it's going to be, I've got a net in there and a couple of rods and reels for kids just getting into muskie fishing. We got a pile of baits. I got a whole muskie monster full of tackle that I'm donating or raffling off, I guess. And people have just been coming forward on Facebook and saying, I got these that I don't use and I would like to pass them forward for this. So it's been overwhelming. It's beyond more than I could believe that was ever going to happen. I was not expecting all of this. So,
wow. Well, I'll tell you, on the eve of Muskie Odyssey, and I see the hard work that's going into that virtual show that's going to be happening this weekend, and the people that are involved. And I tell you, the muskie anglers, they're a group that I didn't know a lot about. It's a very tight-knit group that I'm finding, but my Lord, have you guys got big hearts. You just recently concluded a great fundraiser for, God rest his soul, Rob Cadeau, and you guys raised how much money for cancer research?
I want to say it was just over $20,000, I think. So yeah, it was, yeah. Everyone jumped up and stepped up large for that one too. So,
wow. Well, on that note, obviously, a lot of people I imagine you're going to be a busy boy tonight, Bryon. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be getting in touch with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, CFN wants to help out as best we can.
Okay.
And we're certainly going to help out with the prizes. We're going to definitely help out with the promotion. If that group over there with John Anderson and what have you are not able to come through with the raffle, because I know those lads and ladies are going to be busy with the Odyssey and everything else that's going on. with regards to the fundraiser for Rob, but if there's any way we can help out, and I know there's a lot of CFNers that would want to jump on board just because of what this initiative represents, not just to the angling community, but to you as an angler. Right. And the fact that, it's not easy losing a father at any age, but especially at an early age. And whatever time he did have with you, he did a good job, because you've got a heck of a heart, and your mom's done a fantastic job raising you.
Yes.
Because what you're going to be giving back to our community, we can't thank you enough for.
Well, thank you very much for bringing me on here. I appreciate it so much, Jim. Thank you for sharing your segment.
No problem, buddy. You got my contact. Anything, just anytime.
All right. Thank you very much.
And when COVID does disappear,
yeah,
and you're looking to book a muskie of a lifetime, perhaps maybe it's a muskie for the first time, make sure you get in touch with Bryon Sturch, and he will put you in the right direction. But in the meantime, let's do what we can, CFN, to help out this gent. Let's burn his phone up and message the heck out of him and see how we can all help out. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Bryon.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Take care, buddy.
Thank you, Jim.
Right on. Wow.
That awesome, man. It'll turn out really good. Yeah, that's why when I talk to him, I get messages like that all the time, and he just, like I say, I knew him from Facebook and that, but he just struck me as a person that just wanted to do some good. There was nothing, he's such an easygoing guy, as you can see, and it's really, really good. It'll be very successful for him, and it'll be wonderful. Too. That's what I said too. When I had the cancer, Muskies Canada helped me out, because I had a little bit of, it was 26 months. I had a little bit of time where I got hurt bad, and they helped me out a couple of times with stuff, and unsolicited, they just showed up at my door like a couple of times with checks. It was absolutely, you got tears running down your face. That guy's taken. I mean, and I used to muskie fish was like I was a maniac. Like last week when I was on with John Anderson there on his show, after that, he sent me a note the day after, and he said, like, wow, it was so cool to talk about, to imagine you as a muskie fisherman. And he said, most muskie fishermen, or a lot of them, are bass fishermen, and they catch a muskie and they go, whoa, I got to get more of this. And then he said, you did the opposite. You caught muskies and you went to bass fishing. So I said, and I said, well, like I said, catching muskies, you get your picture in the paper. You catching bass, you get Ranger boats and Chevy trucks and checks for $50,000 and stuff like that. So that's why I went that way. And he says to me at the end, he says to me, well, you stick to the boats, I'll stick to trying to get my picture. I thought was.
Well, listen.
Sorry, go ahead.
When I was talking to Bryon on the phone, and he was telling me the story of, how, as a young angler, up and comer, and unfortunately lost his dad at a very early age. He turned to fishing and loved it. Has found solitude with it. Certainly, as he's very open about it. Obviously suffers with a little bit of depression and anxiety, and turns to angling as much as he can, and wants to take people out so that they can have angling as their solitude. Drugs and therapy and all that stuff, they help. I'm not gonna say that they don't, because sometimes people need different types of help. But one thing that I can honestly say, with all the CFNers that are watching tonight, including some others that will be joining us later, they find solitude in angling, and it's a powerful thing. It's not just a pastime, it's not just a sport, but it's a therapy. And I tell you, with everything that's going on in the world, we need as much as we can.
When I go for Tim Hortons a lot of mornings here, because I'm in my 4:15 routine right now. So you see me post pictures of the sun coming up and stuff like that, that I set my mind in a day, like for the day. When I do that in the morning, and it's a great morning, there's nothing can be bad that day. It doesn't make a difference if bad stuff happens. I still feel good. And to this day, if I'm in the boat alone, or if I'm down here in that chair, there's nothing else in my mind. It's just me and the fish, and that's all it is. I'm not worried about who's fishing over there. Yeah, like if I see somebody, I'll talk to them in a second. But I mean, it's just me and the fish, and it doesn't make a difference if I was up here and had a terrible day and got ads canceled or whatever. Like if you look at it and you're ready to get the rope and go out to the garage. I mean, it's just you have bad days like that. But man, oh man, at the end of the day, when I spend my 45 minutes down the back here, whether I catch a fish or not, it just makes for an incredible time.
It does, and Victoria, she shares a great story how it's basically reunited all of her children on a different level, and fishing has done that. Macy says, "I still waiting permission from the county to paint the yellow fish." This girl, I don't want to ruin the secret because I'm sure she's opening a letter as we speak right now that is very, very cool. But when you start to see generations like yours and mine, Jim, and then you see the Macy's of the world trying to take the bull by the horns and is embarking on this yellow fish campaign out in her neck of the woods to draw attention to the importance of keeping our water clean. And I know Lawrence would be all over this. I think it's cool to see. And if we can somehow foster that through CFN and, all of our mentorship, whether it be yourself, Jim, Jason, Lawrence, or all of us, I think that's our destiny, right? Like that's truly what we're here for.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very true, buddy. Very, very true. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Listen, Jim has Bill has a question for you. What are your thoughts on our Canadian boys fishing the Bassmasters Elite Series this year?
Well, they're just rolling right along.
Amen.
They're rolling right along. Gussie had a little stumble here after he won, but he'll get back on top of that. It's this, eh? It's this. Everybody is looking at it thinking, oh, he's done so bad now. He's done so bad now. But at the beginning of the years, it was the Johnson brothers. They couldn't do anything right. And then, now they're back ahead of them. And it's just familiarity with certain waters. And like on the weekend there, a 5-pounder, and Gussie could have been fishing Sunday, let alone Saturday, It's that type of a thing when you get in a waterway like that. Like, I mean, how do you bring in 5 fish that weigh 4 pounds, 11 ounces?
I know I can.
I love it. That's okay. I'm speechless. That don't happen too often.
I can do it. Challenge accepted.
But they'll come around. I think all 3 of them will make the Bassmaster Classic again, and I think that they will for a long time to come. I think they will for a long time to come because there's people forget that there's still a lot of water. I mean, their weakness would be in the South because they don't have the same experience. But I mean, they've done okay in the South. I mean, he just went and won, down there. Chris won in the North, but Chris also won FLW Tour in Florida, and Gussie came second by a few ounces. That was what, 3 years ago? Like that was the first time we almost had a win. And for Gussie, and Chris got the win, and it was absolutely awesome. I mean, they're those 3 kids are well, they're not kids anymore, but they're to me they are, but they're rolling right along. They're happy. They're having a good time.
You got a heck of a memory too, dude. I'm amazed sometimes at what you don't forget. And as I said,
and I don't forget about the Nico rig.
Actually, it was the Tokyo.
I forgot about you jamming me the other day about that, eh?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Memos.
Yes, absolutely.
Memo to self. Sting Scotty. Headbutt next time.
Literally, it's written on my hand. I just can't show you.
So I had a guy call me. He was from Sudbury, and he says to me, how do I fish? He said, I bought these spinner baits, and he showed me a bunch of spinner baits. I haven't got one here. I just grabbed one I was thinking about. So I grabbed the buzz bait. It's the same thing. On the buzz bait, see the way it's an open wire, it's not twisted? And a lot of spinner baits are like that. Like here, where you tie on the line. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you want to use a leader with that, guys don't like that because I don't have the right leader in here. I just grabbed this stuff on this old jerkbait leader. So you put the leader on, but it can slide down. It can move. Right. So it makes it a bummer to use. You want one with a twisted eye. So what you do is you take that and you put a split ring over it. you put your leader on. I don't have a proper leader here. That's a jerk bait.
Yeah.
But once your leader's on, it's hanging on the leader. It can't get away. It's held in place just with a split ring.
Now, how many of us have tried to tighten?
I've known this forever. And it just dawned on me. Somebody asked me, and then there was another guy called me, and he says he was out fishing on the weekend, and he said he got bit off by pike. He was using a little weenie $30 crankbait from Japan, and or a jerkbait, not a crankbait, and he got bit off a few times. So I told him, I said, go find yourself some stringies, single strand wires. That's a single strand wire. See, it has the little fast attach deal on the end here where you twist your bait on and off that I like.
Yeah.
Has nothing on the other end. Where the hell's the camera? Has nothing on the other end here.
Yeah.
You can see it's just a ring you tie off to that. So when you got your $30 jerkbait, you've got that little piece of wire there. It's not going to kink. It's not going to bend. You know, it's what it is. These are made by Stringies, which is a Canadian company.
Cool.
A lot of Bernard, great guy. They're just incredible. I found the box. I've been looking for them. I couldn't find them. But if you can't find him and you want something like that for your jerk baits, and they're like 30-pound test, I think. So it's a really strong leader for how fine it is. But you can also just message Dave Chong on Facebook, and he could probably hook you up and sell you some. They're not cheap, but they're absolutely incredible, and they're not going to bend. So that's a really cool thing. You can tie a knot in a wire if you want.
Right on, my friend. Well, listen.
Really cool. Yeah, no, it's just one little thing I wanted to mention. I had so many people asking me about that, and then I have two people in the space of a day. The one guy bought 20 spinner baits, and they all had the open eye. And he said, he was out fishing, and I said, "Is the pike season open where you are?" And he goes, "No, I wasn't fishing for pike." I said, "Well, how come you had a leader on it?" I didn't want to jam him much. Actually, he told me truthfully he was actually out fishing for smallmouth bass because where he is, the season's open, or where they were going fishing, the season is open all year round. And I asked him how he did, and he said we did really good. He said we caught about 15. He was pretty excited, and he got a whole bunch of 2.5, 3.5 pounders. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you about that, Jim, because we're not really seeing a lot of catches because you're not supposed to be.
No, it's so you're supposed. Those words are in there immediately forthwith. So if you're grabbing the fish at the side of the boat, I've seen lots of little clips of film or pictures with a guy trying to grab a fish at the side of the boat or something. That's all good, but I guess it's just to keep a little bit less stress on the fish.
No, absolutely.
They don't need to be bouncing around in the bottom of the boat if they don't need be. I know a lot of guys that have been out in Lake Ontario here, and they're fishing barbless, so they don't even have to worry about it. They just shake them off because once you get the rod bent, they're not going to jump as much at this time of the year. And once you get the rod bent, the hook isn't coming out of their mouth. The hook comes out of their mouth when the rod goes straight.
Absolutely.
When they get slack, that will work.
Kevin's got a great question.
Yeah, I see the guys who you get the with this leader, you'll get virtually the same action. It's so thin. Where is it? You can't even see it. It's so thin. You can see it trying to pop around. It's just crazy thin and small. It's like about the diameter of about 8-pound or 6-pound mono, maybe even less. Could be even 4. Really skinny, but it works really well.
I like the fact that they're a Canadian company too. My friend, we're 45 minutes in. You have done an admirable job. You've brought Bryon, who is just a gem to us, and all of the tips, tricks, and why didn't I think of that?
I don't want to say it yet, but I didn't get an answer. I didn't get an answer on the date yet, but not this Friday, but next Friday night.
Do we want to say it, or do we want to keep it a secret?
No, we'll keep it just to be sure. I'll probably hear tonight or tomorrow, so maybe tomorrow night you can start mentioning it. But I'll as soon as they say that works for sure, because I don't want to jump the gun and on it. But it's a done deal. It's just a question of the dates. It's we'll put it together and everybody will have some fun. But if you're still gonna be alive next week, just a week Friday, and you like
Are you
fishing,
talking about me or the rest of the community?
hey, everybody, what the hell? Otherwise, see what I'm saying? Like, you have to be here.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
We'll basically give you the guy that taught, North America to fish. It's
There it is.
cool.
The subtle
I'm excited.
As I said, you've said some great things about how that gentleman possessed you to fish, motivated you to fish, become the angler that you are. So it's going to be interesting to sit back and watch you with your mentor. That'll be cool. Right on, buddy. Listen, thanks for doing this. Thanks for everything.
I'm excited.
I bet you are.
Everybody out there, be safe. Do your part, eh?
Absolutely. Have a great week, my friend. We'll be talking to you soon.
Take care, folks.
Yet another gem, another segment that, as I said, will go down in the books as why didn't I think of that? A split ring. Makes so much sense. And some rubber tubing, as Kenneth had mentioned, and Sean. Brilliant. Never even thought of that. How many times have you tried to like yank it hard so that it won't slip on you? And duh. Anyway, listen, we have Lawrence with us, but he wanted you to have a look at this video first, before we get his segment.
It's something that I find personally reprehensible. And if you ask most people, I think they'd tell you that it's reprehensible. And yet we still allow this to go on. We quietly tolerate it. And I spend half my year usually out west. It's the same problem on the west coast.
Raw sewage.
Yeah, in Halifax, and it's just a practice that we've been able to that Mother Nature's been able to tolerate us doing for a long time, and she doesn't tolerate it so much anymore.
Lawrence?
Yes, sir.
Wow, what a broad topic that is, and how it encompasses so many of our bodies of water across Canada. But tell us a little bit about that segment. What lies beneath?
Yeah, that John Anderson. He's the Ottawa River Muskie Factory. He's been guiding on the Ottawa River since I met him 15 years ago. I caught my first muskie with that guy, and he's just he's on that river. He's on that river over 100 days a year, from season to season, beginning to end, every season. And he told me, and I'm doing some research just around that time, they had left a valve open and 2 billion liters of raw sewage just spilled into the river. That was an accident. Someone lost their job. And then we find out, after the city admitted to this, that every time it rains hard in the city, to prevent sewage from backing up into people's basements, because the sewage and the storm drains are the same in most of the old parts of Ottawa, they release these 24 valves and just let it dump straight into the river. Just, raw sewage, condoms, tampon applicators, toilet paper, all the floaties, everything, whoosh, right in. No warning, no advance notice. You pull your boat out of the water and put it on the trailer and see this big brown scum line around the hull, and you think, where the hell did that come from? And then it's a big river. It moves fast. It doesn't take long to clear, but it happens. It happens. Now the Ottawa River, the city of Ottawa just spent $250 million engineering and building a giant holding tank. So now 99% of that stuff is captured. It's held. It's pumped into the sewage treatment plant and then released after treatment. But that's the stuff you see, Scotty. That's the stuff you see. The stuff you can't see, the viruses, the medication, the cleaning products, all the chemicals, the pharmaceuticals that get put into the river. The treatment doesn't take that out, right? It doesn't take that out. And John had a story to tell that we didn't get into in that little teaser, but the story he told in that one of those 10 stories on What Lies Below is about that. And it's quite powerful. I won't give it away, but
And it's powerful because we can all own it. Like we can all see it. It's in our backyard, and one thing that really hit me is as it hit me hard when I found this out, but they were doing a lot of studies on our West Coast, and I think you and I have talked about this before, and it was a Q&A. It was a trivia question. They said, what compound was found in the fatty tissue of 90% of the salmon? What was the highest level of this ingredient, this toxin, this chemical was found in the fatty tissue of salmon out on our West Coast? And I don't know. I said mercury. I said lead. Those are just some of the common ones. Ibuprofen.
Huh.
Well, had the highest content in all the fatty tissue on in salmon on the West Coast. Just blew my mind.
That's so. Can you imagine? I've heard that though. I've heard like even downstream of Montreal, right? The estrogen, the hormone estrogen that's released. Estrogen is in the pill, the birth control, and it comes out in the urine, and it's passed through the sewage system, and it goes into the river. And they say the minnows downstream from Montreal now have both sexes. So there's the number of male minnows is going down, because if you're born a male minnow, there's so much estrogen in the water that you develop ovaries. They develop ovaries. So
come on.
Oh yeah. And there's a muskie guide who fishes below the Montreal, and he said, I didn't mind the poop. He said we had the best weed beds ever, and there was a lot of muskie. He said, but now I think the male muskies, they're not that interested in spawning anymore because of all the antidepressants that's in the water system. He thinks the muskie just got lazy. They don't have that spunk. They don't have that fire in their belly to go and spawn anymore. And he thinks now there's no factual science. But this guy, another guide who spends 100 days on the water every year and has for many, many years. These are just his observations after 10, 15, 20 years of being on the water.
Well, I'm not sure I'd want the science behind that. That sounds absolutely terrifying to me, that we can have that kind of effect on our fish. But I think at the same token, we should embrace the possibility of having that kind of effect. And really, Kevin Lowen is talking about the Red River in Manitoba, about it being a dumping ground forever. Well, listen, David has also mentioned Hamilton. It's no accident to dump raw sewage, and Hamilton was fined over it. I'd like to say that there's not a body of water that our CFNers are close to that in some way, shape, or form has some kind of nutrient loading, dumping, whatever you want to call it, going on. And I just recently found out, a friend of mine at work told me that they're writing a petition right here in Orangeville for the headwaters of the Credit River, that the city has plans to direct some of the effluent that's coming out of the town of Orangeville, which is not a big town by any means.
No, 50,000, maybe 40,000 people.
But to be dumping raw sewage into the Credit River?
No.
Yeah.
It's this old infrastructure, right? This linkage of sewage and storm drains, and then you have to replace all these things, right? You have to dig it up, and small towns, they don't have the budgets for that sort of thing. They don't. So, when it rains, they just let it, take the pressure off and let it dump.
Okay, and I think that's really important for us to discuss, because in a lot of cases, let's not tarnish some of the efforts that do go into trying to treat some of this gray water, as they call it. There is a component to our infrastructure that allows for a certain amount of gray water to be cleaned and properly dealt with. However, when we get these 100-year rains every month,
and then the dump happens. I mean, like cities like Halifax, they just dumped year round. They treated no sewage. They just ran a big pipe way out into the Halifax harbor. Same with Sydney Harbor in Nova Scotia. A big long pipe went into the harbor. Victoria, British Columbia, same thing. Big long pipe. Now Victoria's cleaning it up. Halifax City, they've all cleaned it up. They've all invested. These are big cities, so they have the tax base to do it, right? And thank goodness. So I mean, they're taking care of that end of it. We're getting better at this, Scotty. We're getting better. But like I say, it used to be like for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we could treat the rivers and the lakes as our make it disappear. It's out of sight, out of mind. There it goes. Bye-bye. And nature didn't mind. This is all biodegradable stuff. Like, you think about it. What did we have 150 years ago and before that wasn't biodegradable? It was almost nothing. Nothing. Now, that's not the case. So even if we're treating sewage and then we're just letting it spill into the river, treated, we get all the chunks out and we get the kill the bacteria, we're not getting the chemicals out. We're not getting the pharmaceuticals out. So we need to start to rethink what's going down our toilets, through our bodies, into our toilets and into the rivers. We need to start to think where we're putting that and the volumes. It's not, that stuff's just not magically disappearing.
No. And, Victoria, Macy, her daughter, is embarking on this, the Yellow Fish campaign, which I think is great for our youth to start thinking about that, because, as good of a job as some of us try to do when it comes to educating people, we can't get to them all, and some stuff has to be done in their own backyard. And I applaud Macy for doing this. Fantastic. Because she's such, I don't know, she's such an inspiration for such a young lady. And, as I said, wants to take the bull by the horns and get the message out to people around. And, as subtle of a hint as it may be, painting a yellow fish by the side of a catch basin, it does hammer home a message. And we have to be conscious of what we're dumping. So, not to say that the landfills are definitely are the obvious solution. Like, go send everything to the landfills, not necessarily. But let's not send it out right to the water for the sake of what it's going to possibly do to not only the fish, but more so the water itself.
Settling ponds, we need to create settling ponds so that it can go in there and the things settle off and let the water evaporate out instead of just pushing it into the rivers and lakes, because it's so convenient. And which brings me to the next story, Scotty. Like Lake of the Woods, right? Here's the the sixth Great Lake. The sixth Great Lake. The Lake of the Woods, in Western Ontario, Eastern Manitoba, and Minnesota, it's the sixth largest lake that's partially or wholly in the United States. That's amazing. The other five bigger lakes are the Great Lakes, the other Great Lakes, right? They're the biggest lakes, and plus Lake of the Woods is number 6. Biggest lake in the United States. For us, we have some bigger ones for sure. Great Slave, Great Bear. But it's still a big lake. It's 100 kilometers wide. It's over 100 kilometers long. It's got like 14,000 islands in the south end. It's a bizarre lake. You think of Lake Erie, all shallow and weedy, and then Lake Ontario, cold and deep. You have all that in one lake, Lake of the Woods. At the south end, it's all shallow, average depth of maybe 12 feet, and 14,000 islands down at the south end. And then you go up to the north end, and it's Canadian Shield. It's 180 feet deep. It's got crystal clear water. It's got lake trout up at the north end. It's a true Canadian lake at one end, a true Canadian Shield lake at one end, and it's a walleye perch filled fishing heaven at the south end, full of pike and muskie. It's got everything. It's this dual personality. Unfortunately, it's also got the Rainy River and other rivers that flow into it that are creating these massive algae blooms in the south end of the lake that are just driving everyone nuts. I mean, you got 14,000 islands, you got cottages on a lot of those islands. People, have been holding those cottages, and they go to the cottage and they can't even set foot in the water because it's just glowing green all summer long. And people are getting fed up.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Talking to Peter, who's just showed up here just now, he said it best today when we were in the yard. He says it's hard to believe. Like, you were on here last week talking about mercury and how we shouldn't be eating fish, and that's up in areas of Lake Superior, which of course people down here in the southern part of Ontario think, well, that's way up there. How is it that's polluted way up there? Lake of the Woods isn't like, what is it from here in Toronto? What's it going to take? 26 hours roughly to drive there?
Yeah, 1,100 miles from Toronto to Lake of the Woods. 1,100 miles. Yeah.
It seems so far away, but yet their problems are no different than what's going on here in Southern Ontario, Hamilton Harbor, Lake Ontario, and some of our, our urbanized centers that unfortunately are finding it difficult with the infrastructure that's failing and beginning to fail to keep up with the demand of this raw sewage. And really, at the end of the day, it's got to go somewhere, right?
It's got to go somewhere, but there's more. There's sewage, there's runoff from farms, fertilizer, all of that. There's a million things. Plus, the water's getting warmer, so it takes less phosphorus to create algae blooms than it did 10 years ago because the water's warmer. But I tell you, if you look at that whole Lake of the Woods story, it's over the last 15 years, they've identified the problems, they've rallied the troops, and it's just amazing. Like, here's a success story unfolding before our noses, my friend. They've got the state of Minnesota has passed a law saying the Rainy River and their end of the lake, they have to clean it up. Environment and Climate Change Canada has been holding webinars and publishing papers saying, okay, we want to get these levels of phosphorus in this lake. This is our goal. It published the goals. This is where we need to get to. Yeah. So now we need to figure out, what do we need to do to get there? You got the International Joint Commission going up there and forming a special committee to look at the Rainy River, Lake of the Woods, IJC, International Joint Commission, to keep and watch on all these government operations, federal, state, provincial. They're all got a hand in this. They all got some responsibility to deal something. And this big mothership, the IJC, watching over everybody, and all by the hands of a couple small conservation groups, right? Like this guy I interviewed for not the first time, Todd Sellers. He's the head of the Lake of the Woods Water Sustainability Foundation. And if you go to the Bluefish News for April 12 on the bluefishcanada.ca website, you'll see the Bluefish News are for April 12. There's a podcast of story and all the other related news for the past 2 weeks on fish and fishing. But it's he tells a story of how over 15 years and patience and diplomacy, he's rallied these government organizations to step in and start to deal with it before the situation got really out of hand. Like there's no die-offs. There's nothing that's, it's a lake like every other lake. It's got its challenges, but it's still a beautiful, beautiful body of water. It's still one of the prime musky fishing waters in central Canada, Western Ontario. It doesn't get better than Lake of the Woods. Pike, lake trout, everything's in there. Walleye, perch, bass. It's got everything, absolutely everything. Like, beam me up, Scotty. I want to get out there now, man.
I'm just gonna say, are we gonna? I gotta fire up the truck. Let's go now. Oh, that's right. COVID won't allow us to.
Oh, I'll ride on the roof. I don't care. You go inside, I'll ride outside.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's one of those areas of Ontario and Manitoba and the U.S., as you've eloquently mentioned, that I have yet to go to. I've not been to the Lake of the Woods, and it's an area that I definitely want to see my shadow in before, unfortunately, this frame disappears from the earth because of its vastness. I just want to see it. I want to experience it. It's quite the fishery. And I think we need to do a better job for it and a whole whack of others. And I tell you, as much of a nuisance as zebra mussels have been, man, can you imagine these Great Lakes if we didn't have them?
It's just bizarre, the contortions we put the Great Lakes through with our different invasive species. We close your eyes, count to 30, and open them again, and voila, everything's different. Right. Yeah. And every 10 years we do this, here's another invasive species to turn it all around. Not cattails, just cattails, okay. And, one of the little bastards in Lake of the Woods is the rusty crawfish, out there lawn mowing all the weed beds down with their big giant clippers. It's, and who likes weed beds? Pike and muskie and bass. So there's challenges for sure. There's challenges, but it still is. Look, you guys, bucket list, Lake of the Woods, the jewel of Western Canada. There's no doubt about it. It's an amazing, amazing body of water. And you definitely want to experience that. It's still, there's no industry on that lake. There's a paper mill, I think, in Dryden. And otherwise, it's relatively industry free, right? This is still a pristine lake.
And it is. And I would imagine that it would be even more pristine if it didn't have this kind of nutrient loading. Plus, there's a fair bit of agriculture, I would imagine, up that way too. No,
Not really. Like just
No?
like at the Rainy River in the south, it's too far north to grow anything, and it's surrounded by 10 drainage basins, 10 watersheds. So all the land around Lake of the Woods is mostly just wet. It's other lakes and rivers and streams and swamps and wetlands. So growing anything around the lake is almost impossible. But that's where the Rainy River comes in from the south. It does go through a bit more agricultural and a little bit on the Ontario side as well, but for the most part, those shorelines, man, they're pristine. They're pristine. And once you get a little bit, the north half of the lake, like half that lake, I think 55% of the lake is in Canada and into the Canadian Shield. And that's Shield Lake. Like that's just rock, just rock and deep bays and very clear, what they call low productivity. So here's the thing, Scotty. I'm listening to this Environment and Climate Change Canada presentation last week with Todd Sellers, the head of the organization, the foundation. And we get through the whole we get through the whole presentation. They divided the lake into 3 chunks, and they talk about productivity, low productivity, high productivity. And I said, where's the fisheries people on all this? Where's the fisheries experts? Well, we've talked to them. I said, well, it's great that you're talking about blue-green algae and all this stuff, but this is the most valuable thing about this lake economically is the fishery, the tourism. Why aren't those people a part of your production? Because if you take all the nutrients out of the lake, there's going to be some dire consequences, right? You need to get this right. Look what happened to Michigan and Huron. I mean, there's so little nutrients going into those lakes now. The scientists are saying the fish are starving. Yeah, the salmon, the Chinook, and the coho, they did starve. They're kind of gone out of Michigan and Huron now because they just couldn't live in what they call a low productivity lake. But, lake trout, Cisco, whitefish can because they're used to that. So you got to get this right. You can't just willy-nilly pick a number. You got to get the fish people on side. And the cottagers, they just want to get the algae out of the water. That's their main thing. But where are the fishing people? And I was a little disappointed. The International Joint Commission finally realized that they got to stop looking at one issue in isolation from all the rest. They got to look at the big picture. You've got to look at the big picture.
I would say that goes for just about any crisis or situation that we're dealing with on our planet and in our world. You definitely have to look at the big picture. But yeah, no, great points that you bring up. As you know, I've always said I'd like to see the anglers, the fishermen, women involved more in the decision making as stakeholders. And I think some of these meetings need to foster that kind of involvement and participation. That it does include not just people who have a vested interest. Obviously, if you're a charter or guide person and or you're an outfitter, obviously you have a stake in the fishing. But just anglers in general, folks like Gord Pizer, or some of the Lindner people who have spent an awful lot of time on that body of water. I'd love to hear some of their opinions. Some folks who live on that lake and have no vested interest other than they love to fish. Be a part of that kind of consultation.
I agree, and that's why, like, when we talk, Scotty, and we have people listening, and they get more comfortable. They're comfortable talking about environmental issues as anglers. And putting this language, the terminology, getting a grasp on that. So when they go to these webinars and seminars, and they can pose questions and ask questions and not worry about embarrassing themselves. So, I mean, there's a couple more sessions coming up in 2 days. And then you can put some input in there up until April 30th on the Environment and Climate Change Canada site. And you can answer the questionnaires, or you can just freewheel it and say, hey, don't forget about the fish, Enviro Canada, hello.
Oh, absolutely. And Steve, yeah, that's a topic for another day. But all the more reason, obviously, with the productivity of some of our Great Lakes, all the more reason to have bait fish hatcheries, which is something that I'm a huge proponent of. And it, a lot of people have said it's not practical, and perhaps it might not be right now. But I think going forward in the future, when we have all our sport fish that are in demand of sustenance, it might be something that we can't overlook any longer, and big fish hatcheries might be the thing of the future. Feel the bite segment. What are we discussing on your Feel the Bite segment?
Well, to get back to that Ottawa River segment, when I met John Anderson, I'll admit it, 15 years ago, I never used bait casters, right? Like I every so often I tried, but I never really knew anyone that knew could teach me how to use a bait caster. I used push buttons and spinning reels. And then John said, come muskie fishing with me. And I said, well, I don't have any muskie gear. And so the closest thing I could come up with was my 12-foot long carp rod with a number 12,000 Shimano spinning reel loaded up with 100-pound Power Pro. So he said, well, bring that. So we went out on his boat, and I've got my 12-foot carp rod, this monster reel, casting these big muskie baits. And we did that. And I caught my first muskie on the Ottawa River with John Anderson 15 years ago. And then it made me think, like, this is not appropriate gear, right? And then you see some of these TV shows that are, where people are sponsored from different tackle companies, and maybe they don't make muskie gear, so they're using bass flipping sticks for catching muskie and big bass reels. And use the right size gear. Just get the right size gear, and if it doesn't match your sponsor, just don't mention the name of the rod and reel you're using in your article or in your, in whatever you're chatting about online. Just say it's an 8-foot extra heavy or a 9-foot extra heavy rod, and I use this kind of weight line. Just never mind, but get the right kind of gear, because these fish deserve they deserve a chance to live after being caught. I mean, we're catching these muskie. We're bringing them to the boat, especially in the summer when their hearts are beating 1 million beats per minute because of the warm water. You want to bring them to the boat. You want to overwhelm them, not exhaust them. Just overwhelm them. There's a difference. It's like if you got a dog and you got a good control over your dog, you don't need to wrestle it to the ground to go for a walk with it. It'll give up. It'll give up. It'll follow you. The animals do that, and fish will do it too. If you have enough power, you can definitely make them submit without exhausting them. Just get the right gear, you guys.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I think if you were to show up with a Barbie rod, as David said, catch muskie, you'll be thrown off the boat. Never mind the muskie. Speaking of which, there was an article that was shared on my timeline by Richard Dunlop in regards to muskie, talking about muskie and how the goat having an adverse effect to our beloved our muskie sport fishery.
Yeah, I interviewed, and I'll get that Bluefish radio episode of that scientist from the Thousand Islands Fish Observatory. It's a research center there on the Thousand Islands, and I interviewed the head researcher and one of his PhD candidates about this. There's like 10, 12-inch gobies living around Thousand Islands. They love the rocks. They love living in 10, 12, 15 feet of water, 20 feet of water. That's gobies prefer that, rocky bottoms. And the muskie, love eating those big gobies. But there's two things going on with these gobies. One is they're little stink pots when it comes to pests and pestilence and virus. And the big muskie are susceptible to that. And they're having some die-offs. The other thing is, where the muskie spawn, muskies, they're not like bass where they protect their little fry. They spawn, they swim away, good luck. And then the gobies walk in and gobble, off they go. Now, my friend Matt at the St. Lawrence River Institute, he's been running seine nets, doing research, up and down the upper St. Lawrence River, counting fish. And I think he's counted 14 baby muskie out of 140,000 fish they've caught in the last 10 years. Like, they're not seeing small muskie anymore. They're just not seeing small muskie. You have a really healthy middle size and big size muskie population because they're gorging themselves on gobies. But now they're getting killed off by the virus, and then they don't have the young ones coming in behind them. So there you go. We might be having to stock muskie if we're going to keep muskie in the St. Lawrence River. It might come down to hatchery fish.
And we were saying this in our legacy chat with our legacy members in regards to it, in the article that we all read and heard. And of course, this is the one sport fish that I can honestly say obviously, spawning, when it comes to sporadic spawning of our sport fish, obviously the fry, the eggs, what have you, is susceptible to, the gobies. And we've always known that. But what we didn't know is that toxicity in which they carry from eating various things and contracting the viruses, as you say, has not really showed up in any other sport fish. We see smallmouth jammed full of gobies. We see walleye jammed full of gobies. Perch, even salmon are starting, I hear, to start feeding on them. But when it comes to muskie, they're the first ones that I can honestly think of that are having an adverse effect to eating them.
They had a big die-off, I think, in 2006 on the St. Lawrence River to this virus. Then, they saw a lot of dead, big, large females. It was the big, large females that died off. And then they sort of, herd immunity, or the herd just is thin to the point where the virus says no more hosts. So the herd dropped off, and then the virus fell back, and then now the herd is built back up again. So now you've got a host for the virus again. And it's starting to show its ugly head again, and it's a problem. The big girls are starting to show that they've got some this virus issue, and well, what are we going to do about that, right? Like you said, it's not showing up in the walleye or the smallmouth or the perch. Maybe they don't live along, or maybe they eat other things. I don't know, but the way the scientists put it to me, Scotty, is goby don't give a crap what they catch. They're like the skank of the fish species, right? They don't care. They can live with it, because also what this goby does is it puts all its energy into breeding. It doesn't put any energy into building up immunity. It doesn't care. It's not going to live that long. It'll just breed 3 or 4 times a year instead.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Oh.
Can't honestly say that I knew that about goby. I just thought they were voracious eaters, and anytime that a bass turns its back, it's into the nest and feeding on the eggs. But wow, incredible. Well, as we've learned tonight, Lawrence, as we do each and every night, is come prepared. Make sure you have the right information. Make sure you're discarding your waste in the right areas, and be mindful of what you're throwing down your sinks and toilets. Yeah, exactly. No, don't get rid of your old medications and cleaning product. Don't dump it down there. Don't dump stuff down there. Yeah, just don't. Unreal. Well, listen, I thank you so much, as I do each and every Monday. You bring a wealth of information, and we just love hearing what's coming next. Speaking of which, what can we anticipate for next Monday?
Oh, well, it's Muskie Odyssey week. You're all into that, my friend. So I'm looking. They've been doing some research on the muskie in the St. Johns River in New Brunswick, and I'm talking to some of the scientists down there, and they've been getting back to me. They said, Lawrence, we've got our numbers. We're ready to talk.
Oh, well then, that'll be interesting, and I will have the privilege of listening to it. As I said, this weekend, because we're going to be front and center with the production of the virtual Muskie Odyssey, and we're looking forward to it. But our chapter out in New Brunswick, and Rob Nickerson is I think Rob's going to be somewhat involved, but there's going to be a panel of folks out that way that are going to be speaking about it. And I'm really interested to hear their passion, because of course it is a targeted species of fish right now. For obviously the reason of the salmon, those who are loving the salmon, those who are making money on the salmon, don't really like the toothy critters of the St. John River.
Yeah, it's true. You got this culture clash going on.
It'd be interesting. Anyway, you have yourself a great week. We'll see you on the weekend, my friend. And until next Monday, stay safe and have fun.
Thanks, Scotty. Thanks everyone for having me on.
Right on. You take care, Lawrence. And before we bring on our good friend, Jason Barnucz, let us have a look at one of his sponsor spots. And I should be far more prepared than I am. Oh, there it is.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Ideas can change the world. It's a great message. Oh, we got the whole family tonight.
It's spring break, baby. I can't keep them out, man. I can't keep them out tonight. Spring break.
Is it a little bit of family overload going on right now, Jay?
You know what? Actually, it was Stephanie's request. She's like, Dad, I know my bedtime is usually 8:30, but can I stay up to talk to Scotty on CFN Live? So she's here with her. Stand up. Show your fishing folk shirt.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
And you know this guy over here, the guy who outfishes me all the time. I don't know introductions over here. So.
Vaguely, Jay, and I will say that he's becoming more photogenic as he's getting older. The latest pic I saw, I don't know, I think it was a perch that he was holding.
Yeah,
honestly, and you might want to plug his ears because this is going to go straight to his head. His head's just going to blow up. He looked like he belonged in one of those fishing magazines, like on the front cover.
He gets his looks from his mom. That's all I'm gonna say. You know, thank goodness for Heather. I say that more often than she probably realizes.
Awesome. But, listen, you guys have been busy. When it comes to fishing, and I'll tell you, the amount of content that you're providing our CFN community is like, talk about overload. You've been busy.
Yeah, you know what? Just trying to keep busy, and I guess the news today, the kids are out of school for an extra 2 weeks, so we have a 3 week. 3 week at home with the kids. And, I think it's good to bring the kids on tonight because I think we got to keep the kids out doing something. If you choose fishing, that's great. Of course, we'll encourage it. Kids need to be outside. They got to stay busy. And I do feel for the kids, but the cases are through the roof right now. And, we're not here to make, I'm not here to get angry with anyone. I've expressed my frustration a little bit about the vaccine program, but in the end, what we've done this go round with this lockdown is, for the most part now, as of today, boat ramps are open. There's a few closed, but there's more open boat ramps than closed. Parks are still open. So if you want to go take a walk in the park, go fishing, just enjoy the day, we can do that. Looks like we get a bit of rain this week. Well, kids got rain suits. We're going fishing. We'll probably fish every day this week. That's probably the plan. So
I was going to ask you, with all this rain that's coming, and of course we got a deluge yesterday and a bit today. Are you excited? Are you happy?
You know what? So here's the thing. So everyone's complaining about all the rain yesterday. And what I did yesterday, so let me tell you about last few days. So Friday night, Trevor and I went and did a bit of fishing. Local marina. Went after crappie, didn't catch any. Caught lots of big bluegill, which was fun. So we did that Friday night. Saturday morning, we got up, went to go crappie fishing, tried a bit of that. The wind was I kind of picked the wrong side of the lake where I was going to start. And we ended up going out perch fishing, got a few nice perch. But then I was having some, was having some bilge pump issues. So, which I kind of cut the day early. I said, Trevor, let's just go in. We got a few nice fish. We're going to go in. So yesterday, everyone's complaining about the rain. Dude, I was in my driveway having a beer in the sunshine, changing out my bilge pump. I'm not joking. It was beautiful here yesterday. I was grumpy. I wasn't out fishing, but it was a nice day to work on the boat and get some of that maintenance done. Right. So.
Absolutely. And, obviously, if you're a parent looking to take your child angling and you're not sure where to go in the Southern Ontario area, can you give us some good ideas on where we might take a kid to get them hooked on fishing, or at least get them out to enjoy a day of fishing where they're going to get a chance to fish and they're not be bothered by, other people, other anglers, or what have you?
Yeah, what's nice right now is, we haven't had a whole ton of rain down here. So I think that, what's important is that the streams are actually all pretty low. Now, which makes it great. Usually this time of year, if the water's high, you don't want kids near the water. The streams are low. There's lots of suckers to be had. The catfish are coming on strong. If you have a boat, get out to Long Point Bay is one area that I've been frequenting. And I'm actually going to share a link in the chat here. Good friend of mine, Carrie Cartwright. Some of you might know Carrie. She's from the Brantford area.
Yes.
Great angler. Her and her husband, Marcel, used to fish a bunch of bass tournaments together. Really great people. She wrote a great article for Ontario of Doors a few years ago on and if you look up Long Point Bay fishing, that article always pops up in my feed. So, I don't need a lot of guidance on Long Point, but I love reading that article about Long Point. And yeah, Spark is exactly so. Detroit River's on fire, St. Clair River's on fire, and what's great is there's lots of shore access too, just to get out. The panfish are spawning right now, not quite spawning yet, sorry, but they're moving into the shallows. Most of the marinas that we've been in, the water temperatures are anywhere from the high 50s to low 60s. So it's springtime. Everything's moving. The only thing you have to be worried about is some of the streams are still sanctuaries for trout. So you do have to look for the sanctuary signs. Like I know in Delhi here, Big Creek is a sanctuary. Like no fishing allowed. You know the rule, right, Scotty? Where there's some where you can fish. You got catch trout, you got to let it go. But there's other streams where there's zero fishing allowed. And so Big Creek is one of those creeks where no fishing is allowed. So just double check your regs. But honestly, there's a lot of opportunity. The Thames River in London, the Grand River in Brantford, everything's just getting heated up right now. And, honestly, some dew worms, some hooks, some lead weights, nothing fancy. A lot of opportunity to get the kids out. I know I promised Stephanie we're going to get her into a big catfish this week, so that's going to be one of our quests. She's a little worried about it dragging her in, but we'll see what happens.
From last year?
I might tie a tether, might tether her off to a tree along the Thames River. Just so old General Sherman doesn't drag Stephanie to the bottom of the Thames River. Yeah, and today we were out perch fishing. I needed sunscreen today. I'm sorry. I got scolded at dinner. But we went out perch fishing today, and there was one other boat on the whole bay, Long Point Bay, that we saw, and we probably caught 60 perch, kept 34. I got the numbers guy over here. Yeah, it was great. So there's just so much to do right now. The weather isn't great. Everybody, it's April, right? And I was saying to Trevor today, March break is great because it's ice fishing. April is great if the weather's great, but it's kind of that in-between month. But if you got some rubber boots and you got a raincoat and, a base layer and a toque, even in the mornings, this morning it was a little bit cool out, we can get out and enjoy it. Just dress for it. That's all I got to say.
Well, Steph, Jeanette is giving you some great advice. Just put on a good set of high heels and dig in, baby.
Dig him in. Yeah, she's ready. She's ready. Well, Trevor's personal best is 12.
I thought it was 13.
No, 12 and a half pounds channel catfish. So Stephanie wants to beat that. So we'll see.
Just a little.
It's possible.
Just a little. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They're not competitive, Scott.
No, I can imagine. Yeah, they're nothing like my children. Yes. They're saints, salts of the earth. Absolutely. But obviously, we touched on a little bit about COVID, and there's a lot of questions going on right now with on Facebook regards to ramps, parks, this, that, and everything else. Is there anything that you've heard that you can help enlighten our community when it comes to how COVID is going to rear its ugly head going forward?
I've heard nothing. I'm not surprised that schools are closing down for 2 weeks. It's out of control. The one doctor I follow on Twitter, I just get the facts, number of cases, number of vaccines, that kind of stuff. I don't want any interpretation. I don't want any commentary. We hit 4,400 cases today. That's the highest ever. Our little town here in Simcoe, which is our closest hospital, Norfolk General, they're over 100% capacity for ICU beds because they've been taking patient transfers from other hospitals. This is a tiny hospital. This is a hub for all of for most of Norfolk County. Right now, we're small. There's only 100,000 people in the county where we live. So these small hospitals, when they get strapped, it gets tough, right? So. Yeah. What are you guys joking?
Alicia.
Oh, Alicia.
Yeah, Alicia's going on. She's good. Yes, absolutely. I think
At
their
least you're
money's
egging Stephanie on is what's happening.
yeah, their money on Steph. Can't say I blame her. But no, absolutely a serious topic because of what's going on. You know, and ICUs are at their max. Our healthcare professionals are at their max. Nurses, doctors, you name it. Everybody.
Nurses
who
are close to retirement are quitting right now. Like, so we just have to weather this, okay? And thank goodness. Okay, as much as I loved ice fishing this year because it was something to do in the dead of winter, at least it's spring now. You know, like Stephanie's out on her bike like all day long. You know, Trevor's out with his baitcaster. Father Al, who is our resident priest at our Catholic church down the street, he's one of our neighbors. He likes to drive by and ask Trevor how the fishing is like every day because Trevor's out there with a flipping jig, flipping on the front lawn. If he's not fishing, Scotty, he's on the front lawn flipping a jig all day long. So
maybe you can teach me a few things. Hopefully, Trevor, you can teach me a few things.
He's been swinging a baitcaster since he was 8, maybe even 7. Like he's always wanted to do it. But these are things to do to pass the time. So, you know, practice some casting in the yard. You know, do some target casting, make a game of it. You know, we've done different versions of, you know, like instead of we play a lot of coin toss in the backyard. You know, washer toss. You know, we'll do that with a jig. You know, just or even a weight on a rod. Like, you know, it's really you can make fishing really fun, and you're building skills. You know, so that's a lot of how we taught Stephanie how to use a spinning reel. Was using it at home in the yard. Don't wait till you're on the bank of the river. Don't wait till you're in a boat. You want to teach, you know, not even kids, new anglers. Do it on the lawn. There's no pressure. All you have to do is just cast on the grass. Use a small lead weight, or flipping jigs are great because they got that little skirt and they kind of got a little bit of weight to them, like the little bit of drag in the wind. So I think little flipping jigs are a great practice. I've just told Trevor to stay out of my good jigs. So
there's that.
I caught him with one of Brandon Naggs's beautiful tungsten jigs tied on one of his practice rods one day. We had a conversation. You know, sometimes I got to put on the dad hat, and the dad hat came on firmly. But you know, but practice at home. You know, practice your knot tying. Trevor's been working on learning his knots. He wants to learn he's been trying to learn how to tie a uni knot. You know, things like that. Just practice stuff at home. So it's a great time to do that. I know that not everyone gets to work from home, but, you know, you can make up stuff for your kids to work on. I think it's so important to just spend the time. And if your kids love fishing, there's so much you can do at home that you don't have to be on the water for. But
absolutely.
Throw net for shiners. You need to practice a throw net for sure. Absolutely. Before you go out to use it. I know from experience, you need to practice that stuff safely on the lawn because that's a whole skill to learn how to use a throw net. Absolutely.
I think this is some great advice, and I think it can be some advice that all Facebookers sort of take to heart. You know, reach out to your municipality, find out what's open, find out what's not open. And instead of going all the way out there to find out you're going to get disappointed and then post it all over Facebook, you know, in the eyes of everybody that's dealing with this virus, this pandemic, from our health perspective, they're not going to care about ramps being closed. They could care less about the fact that, you know, you're not able to fish a certain area. They're at war right now in our ICUs and our hospitals. They don't care about parks and ramps and all this other stuff. So instead of taking to social media, just my advice, instead of taking to social media to display your disappointment, do exactly what Steve says here. Go out and before you do go out, make sure you make that call and find out so you're not disappointed. And it saves all of us the rant on Facebook because, you know, unfortunately things are, if they don't get better, are going to close up tighter than they are right now. And
you know, I'm kind of glad that the municipalities, at least the ones that I sort of am close to or in, this is their logic. And I read I'm going to kind of paraphrase a post from Mayor Ken Hewitt from Haldimand County. So Haldimand is the neighboring county. So that's like Caledonia, Dunnville, Cayuga area. And his his Facebook post about why Dunnville and Port Maitland were closed does make some sense to me. And let me hear me out, everyone, for a minute. The way it works is they're getting so much high traffic at the ramps that maintenance of those ramps is hard. So garbage cans, washrooms, and things like that. They have resources in other areas, and they have to try and save money in other areas because they're bleeding money even at the municipal level because of COVID. Now, of course, that they don't want to discourage anglers from coming to the area, but they can't maintain service at a ramp. And even the garbage. Look at some of the stuff last summer. We have to bring it up. It's all fresh in our minds. So I agree with Ken Hewitt in that regard. I'm disappointed in closing ramps, but I can understand you don't want all the pile of garbage, people there's no washroom, so they just go into the washroom wherever they want, that kind of stuff. On the other side of it, he's openly stated private marinas are allowed to stay open. So they're providing a service. And I said this before, I am not spreading COVID in a parking lot at a boat ramp. On Saturday, boat ramps are busy. At no one time was I ever close to a person except for when I had to pay my ramp fee.
Right.
That's it. That's the only time I was close to somebody. Because when you park, you get your rig. Trevor and I get everything ready. We drive up to the ramp. I launch it. He holds onto the boat, ties it off. Dad goes and parks. We come back, and then the next person comes in and launches. Like and that's not even around COVID. That's how boat launches work.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that for now, and again, things can change. I'm really happy that we're keeping boat ramps open for people, and the parks are still open. Like last year at this time, we couldn't even go for a walk in the park to go watch the rainbow spot. Yeah. Like you were stuck. Yeah. So I really feel that at least the politicians and officers of health, medical officers of health, all those guys, girls, they're focusing in the problem areas. They're not doing the broad shutdown. Now, I'm not going to get into anything else other than fishing in the outdoors because there's all other layers to this. But I'm really happy that in terms of outdoor recreation, I'm happy that they've done what they can. Now, I know there's problem areas. Like I see Steve here mentions the Ganaraska River. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tough one.
Like that's been a problem area before COVID. Yeah. And I feel bad for those who want to fish the Ganaraska. I really, really do. And are they using it? Are they using COVID as an excuse? Potentially. But seeing the other side of the coin, man, like it's a big, I don't say liability for a municipality. It's a pain in the neck.
It is. It is.
It is.
And I feel liability and a pain in the neck. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we don't want to see our fisheries shut down and not have access to. Ganaraska is a huge body of water that a lot of anglers have enjoyed over the years, and unfortunately, some have enjoyed it in different ways that they shouldn't have, and it's led us to where we are right now, COVID or not. As you said, a whole bunch of variables associated with that closure, and unfortunately, anglers like Steve Shaw, who do it the right way, are affected just the same as those who do not.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. Is there's so many of us who do right, but it's the minority who do wrong, and those are the ones who stand out. And unfortunately, that's what hurts us, right? So, yeah, Steve, it's a big cost, huge cost to clean up. And, it's not fair to the municipalities to have to clean up the mess from people coming from all over Ontario. Yeah. And what happens is, and the Ganaraska has gone this way, they have lots of private water that you have to pay a membership fee to fish.
Amen. Yeah.
Right. I don't necessarily, I'm 50-50 on that, Scotty. I understand the need for public access to fish. I also see the other side of it, how it could be a real pain in the neck. And at least you can control the people who are using that land, and they're going to appreciate that land. And most of the anglers I know who use those private areas are very respectful individuals. So, yeah, exactly, Victoria. It's very true. Like, You know, and all we can do is just do our best to educate our peers, educate our kids, and you know, and hopefully they set good examples. Like, you can ask him how many times I had him pick up random pieces of garbage on the ice, like when we're ice fishing.
So half of it was frozen. That's the funny thing. So I'd be trying to pull it out and it wouldn't come out.
Like, you know, trays of like a styrofoam tray that was like half frozen in the ice, and he walks over to pick it up, and it's still. I'm like, just grab what you can, and we'll throw it in the sled. Like, I can't stand it. I can't stand the garbage. And
If you drop something, pick it up.
yeah,
Amen. I wish more people were like that.
yeah.
Jay, at least we can hammer home the point. But as a family, I ran into David Spicer this past week, and he was heading north to do some smelt fishing. And Christina has asked, does the Barnucz family do you fish any of the smelt runs?
Not since I was a little kid. You know, the smelt runs haven't been the same in Lake Erie like they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You got to go north to get the smelt runs. That's what I've heard and what I've talked to people about. Now, I do hear that there's more smelt in Lake Erie than there has been for a long time. So maybe that's happening. Maybe I need to take a drive down. We have a couple of cold water streams that flow into. What's great about Norfolk County is the Norfolk Sand Plain is very rich in groundwater. In fact, we have locally. We have the most southern brook trout populations in Ontario, right outside the door here. Now, they're not big; they're just little guys, but they're the most southern ones because we have such great groundwater around here. And so, I think those cold water streams, if there's a healthy smelt population in Erie, they could be. Maybe we'll add that to the spring break trip. Get some headlamps.
That would be.
We do own some headlamps. Maybe we'll just take a drive out to one of the local spots and check it out.
Absolutely. The Niagara River ran very well for smelts last week at Queenston.
Nice.
So there's an option. And David, you know, listen, it wasn't a secret meeting when we're both getting gas at the same gas station. It's a meeting nonetheless, but it was cool to just, you know, by chance run into David and be able to talk a little bit about fishing, a little bit about CFN, and that he was on his way north to do some smelt fishing. And I remember doing that years ago with my dad, and David and I were talking about it on Simcoe, where you could go and you know, grab garbage bags, not to say that you needed to. And I never really understood it because, of course, I was young. I was like, Trevor, you know, whatever dad wanted to do, let's go do kind of thing. And I thought, you know, every time it would go into the garbage bag, another 5-gallon pail, I'm thinking, who's cleaning all this? Like, who wants to clean all this?
Hey, man, that's why today. So I'm not going to lie. Today we actually used. We went and bought minnows from Lake Erie Bait and Tackle. Adam started up a new shop locally here. If anyone's coming down to Long Point, Lake Erie Bait and Tackle is located right between Turkey Point and Boose Harbor. They have a Facebook page. He started up his own shop, and he's selling bait. So we went and got 2 scoops of shiners and went down to the ramp at Collins Marina, and we stopped fishing because we ran out of minnows. That's how good the fishing was. We got 2 scoops. They're healthy scoops, and we brought home 30 perch. And because I don't like cleaning that many fish, man, that was still an hour of work. Cleaning 30.
It's an awful lot of work. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who does it knows what we're talking about. It's a lot of. It's worth it when you dig in. They're delicious, but they are an awful lot of work. There's no doubt about it.
100%.
You just mentioned a tackle store, and I'm going to put this graphic up here. The Ontario Weekend Warrior Get Fishing Tackle Box. Now, you brought this to our attention. Gord Trask, we're going to be talking to him on Thursday at 7. And this is a unique tackle store that, again, we're privileged to have folks like you and Jim and everybody, Lawrence, bring these kind of neat things to us to let us know what's going on in our community around us. But I'm looking forward to this virtual grand opening that Gord is going to take us on. Tell me a little bit about what you know, or maybe.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about Gord. So Gord Trask, I met him. He actually grew up with Heather. So Heather and her brother lived on the North Shore of Scugog, up near Pleasant Point, and that's where they grew up. They went to high school in Lindsay, and so Gord was one of those kids who rode the bus. I was a farm kid. I rode the bus. We always had our bus friends. So Gord rode the bus, was Gord's best friends with Heather's brother, Rick. And so when I came into the family, you you go to a family function and no one talks fishing and you just sit there like, Gord fished. So as soon as my foot got in the door, I would talk fishing with Gord, and it just spawned into this great pun intended.
Yes.
Yeah. It grew into this great relationship with Gord. And I've been fishing with Gord for a long time. And he's just a great human being. He really is. He musky fishes, he perch fishes, he carp fishes, he fishes for whatever. His son Jackson is the same age as Trevor. A couple years ago, we went to the very first ice expo when it was up in Barrie, and I have a really cool picture of us, Gord with his son Jackson, Trevor and I with Bob sitting in front of one of the snow bears. It's one of my favorite pictures because two diehard fishing friends meet up at a trade show with their sons. And, we sit through some seminars, went over to Cabela's. That's where I bought my ice chisel I have right now. I love that ice chisel. I remember buying it that day. I can't tell you what Heather wants me to do this week on spring break, but I know where I bought that ice chisel in Cabela's like 4 years ago in Barrie. But Gord is just a diehard angler, and he is very dedicated to promoting angling in Ontario and supporting Ontario manufacturers of tackle. And so he's going to be starting up. So he's actually going to have an online store plus his store in Peterborough. And he's also going to have a subscription box of just Ontario made tackle. So if you want to sign up for there's a lot of great fishing subscription packages out there. He's going to have one of just Ontario made tackle. That's one of his plans. So, and his background is carpentry, is fine carpentry. He's a wonderful woodworker. Like, he's built stuff that's just, if you have anyone, like my grandfather is a fine carpenter by trade. That's his trade. I don't have that skill, man. I smash. I can't, don't give me a sledgehammer. I'm great at demolition. I'm not good at the other end.
No.
Gord is just, I can't wait to see his shop because I'm sure it's going to be amazing inside. Like, just the way he thinks. So we're really excited for him to be on the show Thursday, and we're looking forward to tuning in. It's on our calendar. So, and I know you want me to tune in with Gord, but I don't want to take anything away from Gord. I want Gord to tell Gord's story because Gord's an amazing individual and angler, and I think his passion will come through in that show. So Thursday night. Right on.
Appreciate it. Now I see you're going to show us a few things.
Yeah, I got a couple quick things to show. So Attila reached out to us about panfish, talking about different setups. So I just wanted to talk about one of the panfish setups we've been using this weekend. So it's actually pretty straightforward. So Attila talked about braid versus mono. So this is actually Berkeley Nanofill. Okay, 8-pound test. Nanofill is really thin braid. I use both Nanofill and I use monofilament. 4-pound mono is like my go-to everyday panfish line. But try with monofilament, it gets twisty. And we always take manage with line twist, especially when you're doing lots of casting and you get line twist. Even the best mono out there will build up line twist over time. So Nanofill is great. But what I wanted to show on here was this other end of it here. So when you're using a slip float like this guy here, so this slip float is made by this is by Cool Waters, okay, Canadian Ontario company. It's a balsa float, okay. But if you're gonna, Nanofill is my main line, okay. And on the I have a 4-pound test fluorocarbon leader. But what I'm doing with a slip float is a couple things. I'm actually putting 2 bobber stops above and 1 below. So right now it's fixed, but if I want to fish deeper, I just have to slide that up. Okay. And the trick though is, we talked about practicing at home. Practice the weights of your jigs for the slip floats that you have, because you want to make sure that the water line is right just there. Okay. You want, if you can make that almost neutrally buoyant. So this is a 4-gram float. I want to use it. If I use a 1/16 ounce jig, which is 2 grams, I don't know how I know these things. I need to add another. I need another gram or so
I did
to
some
make
math.
that. I actually had Trevor. So last week, Scotty, he had the sniffles one day. So he had symptoms. Okay. So he's at home doing what 13-year-olds do when they have nothing to do, which is nothing. And I said, Trevor, I want you to go through Dad's crappy float box and tell me how much weight each float will hold. Here's the jig heads. And I gave him a clipboard, and he went out and did he did trials on different weights of float. So that night when we went fishing, I kind of knew the answer, but I wanted to see. And balsa, what's great about balsa floats is they hold up so much more weight than they say, and they're durable. And if you want a good balsa float, get one with a brass insert at the top. So, so Attila, that's my go-to. But in most cases, I don't run it as a slip float. I actually run it fixed, but I use bobber stops, and I actually like to use 2 at the top. And sometimes I use 2 at the bottom, because when you're running bobber stops on braid is slick. So I'll put 2 back to back just so it holds it in place. So if you, you know what? Christina's asking. So let me find something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you saw that.
Okay, here it is. So Paul, who owns Cool Waters Fishing Products, he makes this is the guy who I get all my steelhead floats from and all of my crappy floats from. Balsa floats, they last you forever, and that is he's the guy. And it's made in Ontario. You can pay through his website with PayPal. He makes a whole bunch of different floats. I'm going to show a couple off here.
When it comes to the bobber stops, do you tie your own? David's asking.
You know what I do? I don't. I find if I tie with the thread, it doesn't cinch tight enough on that braided line. If I'm using mono, I can, but I don't. I just cheap out, man. I buy like a bulk pack on Amazon sometimes, like the little bobber stops, because I use bobber stops for bass fishing, right? When I'll hold the lead, or tungsten weight in place. I use them for pan fishing. I'll use them for steelheading. So let me see here. So these are the 3 main float types that I use. So this is so that's one of his other way. So that's one of his panfish floats. Okay. It's got the little brass insert at the top. Beautiful. And then these are his acorn floats, which if you're looking for a nice little float, he makes them in different sizes. That's a great steelhead float. That's a great panfish float. And they're balsa, and there's about, I don't want to say an inch of varnish on there, but that is durable, man. I'm telling you these are great floats. And where I fish, there's lots of trees and cover, and they really stand up. Now, these ones have been lots of fun. Okay. So that's called a waggler float. Okay. So what I'm doing there is I'm actually running. Now you can run it as a slip float, but what I'm doing here is I'm actually running it fixed. So I take a piece of tubing and I snug it up on that bottom, and it sits. And what I want to do is when I cast that out, the water sits right there. So this is under the water. I want to weight it enough so just this top floats. This is, and if anyone who carp fishes, you'll know what I'm talking about. These waggler style floats are so sensitive. The slightest touch will pull that stem under the water. They're an amazing little float. And Paul makes all those on his website. Cool Waters.
For some of our northern anglers who do walleye fishing, is there a float that you would recommend?
You know what? Any good balsa float will do, Sean. So it's all about the weight. So if I'm going to use, all right, I'll walk you guys through this. So this comes back to, this is from my steelheading brain. Okay. This is how I rig up my floats. We talked about steelheading last fall, and we talked about grams of shot versus grams of floats, right? You got a 5 gram float, you want 5 grams of shot. Okay. Now your row bag doesn't weigh anything. Now you add a little lead jig on their bottom, then you have to supplement how much shot you're going to use. So let me show you a couple things here. So this here is, you have to know how much each thing weighs. So roughly, That's a 1/16 ounce lead head jig. That's, depending on the company, that's anywhere from 1.7 to 2 grams, that jig. If I go to 1/32, it's 1 gram. If I go up to a 1/4 ounce, it's like 2.5 to 3 grams. So you can actually look up the conversion for ounces to grams. So if you want to use let's say a 1/4 ounce jig head under a float, right? So let's say that's 3 grams. Well, you get, all you need is a 4 or 5 gram float, and that will hold up because you don't really need any split shot above that. If your jig is heavy enough to keep that float they call it cocking your float, right? So you want that float set so it's just under the water surface. If it's a little more turbulent in a river, let's say there's more turbulence, you want that float sitting a little higher in the water. But if it's a pretty slow moving river, I would want that float set just perfect below the surface. So you can add some split shot up on your line to get that down. But, once you figure out how many grams that there are grams per ounce in that conversion, once you know that in your head, that's really, really easy to fine tune no matter what type of float you're using. So even if I'm going to the Niagara and I'm going to use a 17 gram balsa float. So why I'm using that heavy float for a steelhead, I need to be able to cast that thing, right? I need to make that distance. Why I like balsa, it's denser than plastic. So here's an old style Phil shy bite, great little float. They're both about the same size, but this one will hold up almost twice as much shot or lead because it's balsa. Balsa just holds up more weight and it's more dense. So this doesn't cast as far as this one. So
great information. I'll tell you, it's an honor just to sit back and listen to all this stuff. Christina Korluk is asking about micro swivels above or below. I'm going to say below the float, correct?
Yeah. So typically what I'm doing is I'm going to run, whether you're using braid or mono for a main line, I'm going to run, and I'm not going to run a very long leader. If I'm fishing for panfish, I'm only going to run maybe that much leader. And I'm going to tell you why. A lot of times I'm running my float fixed. If anyone's looked at a panfish, like a walleye, their eyes are on the top of their head. They're always looking up, especially crappie. You want them to come up. And in fact, I'll just do one more quick demonstration. This is how we caught some of the panfish last weekend on the weekend. So I had this float perfectly weighted, and sometimes the float did this. It actually rolled up on its side because that fish came up, grabbed the bait, and kept coming, and the float went, what? So you want them to come up for that up bite, and you need to. Sometimes your float doesn't go down. Sometimes your float will just shift to the side, back and forth. But if you have it weighted perfectly, a lot of times if your float starts to do this, not even go straight, not even go perpendicular, just tilt, that's a fish making that happen because that fish has come down, it's grabbed your bait, and it's going up slowly. It's basically following through, grabbed it, and keep coming. And that's so it's a strike indicator. It doesn't have to go down. It's just any change of behavior in your float, that's a critical thing. And if you have it weighted properly, you can detect those changes even better.
Jeez. And it's something that it's so obvious, but if you don't think about it for a second, it won't make sense. But yeah, that's absolutely that's great. Now for walleye, Jeanette's saying that they normally troll. Would you recommend still fishing using a float for walleye? Now keep in mind they're quite a ways up north. I would recommend it, especially this time of year where they're shallow, but
yeah,
they're not legal just yet.
There's some great I haven't done a lot of float fishing for walleye. I call it float fishing. I'm not using a center pin, just using a float to fish with. Yeah. But I've used a float my whole life. I use it for channel cats. I would use it for walleye. I can remember I remember messing around in college down at the locks. You know what I'm talking about. Yep. And with I remember taking electrical tape and taping it to a blackbird float, right? And trying to outwit those walleye, because those walleye in that Lindsay lock, they were the smartest walleye on the planet, man, because there was 12 Fleming kids down there every night in the fall trying to catch them, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I killed a lot of time at the Fleming locks, and I played around a lot with floats down there and getting little glow sticks. And that's the other thing too, is trying to get a glow stick onto a float. That's something I haven't quite perfected, but on some of them, I'll just use a little bit of electrical tape, and it's not pretty. I grab that little stick, I crack it, and I'll just tape it. As long as I see a little bit of green on that glow, that's all that I need, and that's what I'll use quite a bit. So, yeah,
Mark.
Point, Mark.
Absolutely, that's bang on.
Yeah.
And for any other reason, when it comes to walleye fishing and using a float, that's exactly why you use it. Is just to bring it over top of whatever cover it is you're trying to fish and target. But it can be the most subtle of presentations and sometimes the most effective. If you got a little bit of current, I'd have to say you'd have to know a little bit more what you're doing with the current. But with wind and what have you, it can sometimes play havoc. So those slender floats that Jay showed us, unfortunately don't, or at least are not as susceptible to movement in the wind, and they can be just a incredible arsenal.
Yeah. We lived on Sturgeon for a couple of years when Heather was working at Kawartha Conservation, and we had a cottage we rented, and it was just off the lake, and I'd fish sturgeon like nightly. That was before these two were around, and I spent a lot of time on Sturgeon Lake, and I got onto a great pattern there. And this pattern I found across all the Kawartha lakes. So late May, early June, when the weed beds start to come up, you start to get those like 8 foot, 10. I'll back up. Most Kawartha lakes have weeds, and a lot of those lakes have weed lines at different depths. So like Balsam is a clearer lake, so the weeds will root a bit deeper. You find where the deepest weeds are, and in late May, early June, there's no weed wall. It's like a staircase. The weeds are kind of coming up, and those post-spawn walleyes would move out to that weed edge, but you couldn't see the weed edge. You needed your graph to find that weed edge, but the crappies would move in there too. And, you would catch these slab crappies mixed in with these like 2-pound walleye, pound and a half walleye. And if it was a calm night, a slip float was awesome on that weed edge for crappie. And in fact, I found that, you could drag that edge with like a grub or like a kind of a traditional walleye bait. But if you could, on those emerging weeds, the weeds haven't come to the surface yet. They're 4 feet down over 6 feet. Just pitch that float, and you could use a minnow or a minnow imitation, just so it's over top of those weeds, just like Mark's saying. And that is a great way to catch. And double whammies. In fact, some of our best memories on sturgeon was we would go out the Friday night before muskie opener. Okay. We would smash the crappie and the walleye on the Friday night of muskie opener, go back to my place, big fish fry, a couple of beers, and then we go muskie fishing for 2 days. And that was like a big weekend for me and my buddies for probably 3 or 4 years.
Sounds horrible. Sounds awful. I don't know how you did it. How did you manage
at all?
Wow.
Listen, we never woke up on time. That's all I'm gonna say.
And it's funny, Jeanette. Yes, absolutely. I totally forgot that you're that far out that walleye has not closed. You still have a couple days. And I believe Sean just said something about it. Walleye is still open until April 14th, which reopens third weekend of May on the May Run weekend. Well, all of us outside of the folks down in the Windsor area and are enjoying the red hot, as Sparkus mentioned, Detroit River, which is on fire, and there's a lot of fish being caught.
You know what? This past weekend, I had some plans to go on a bit of a travel, but the COVID pot's kind of boiling over a little bit. So I said, fishing to me is essential, but when I have 6 ramps open within 30 minutes of my house, why am I going to drive an hour and a half to go fishing? I can fish right here, right? Like, there's so many things I want to do, but I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be where I am. So I kind of made a decision to stay close to home. Maybe I do have to run to Chatham one day this week. I got to meet up with Mike Parker. I got something from Mike that I've been looking forward to picking up. So I got to make a run to Chatham because that is essential. I don't care what anyone says. Essential to see Mike. Got to pick up my thing and visit with Mike. And I'm gonna bring Trevor along too. So we might stop and do a little fishing on the way home at a couple spots. But other than that, we're gonna stay close to home, man. We haven't even tapped the northern pike fish in Long Point Bay yet. That's the next thing.
We've been talking about it, but then we're like,
come on, Dad, let's rig up the pike rods. I'm like, dude, we got catfish rods. I got catfish rods, steelhead rods, panfish rods, perch rods. I got rods all over me here.
we're holding rods.
Stress.
Rod.
You know, and here I am telling people about an hour ago how you go fishing to get rid of stress. And I see the Barnucz family, it just creates stress.
Listen, he's the squirrel. He is squirrel. He'll just randomly rock up to me, and I'm in the middle. Dude, I'm like changing the lower unit oil on the outboard. He'll be like, hey, Dad, let's rig up the pike rods. I'm like, can you just give me 5 minutes, man? Right?
Wow.
So, but we will do some bike fishing soon. And yeah, man, we're just going to take advantage. Listen, I talked to a buddy today. I put some pictures of Trevor up on Instagram from our adventure today. And actually a good friend of mine, George Clark, lives in Thunder Bay. A lot of you guys might know him. He used to be, I think he was or still is with Shimano Pro Staff. Great guy. He's actually from this area. Grew up in the Norfolk area. Right away, he asked me where I got my perch. And we got chatting about, spots in Long Point Bay, and he hasn't fished out here for like 20 years. And it was just a cool conversation to have with, the fishing world is funny to have these mutual friends, Thunder Bay. But I haven't seen George in forever, but we still talk. And he grew up in Norfolk, so we have this mutual love for Norfolk in this area. And just to chat with someone like that after posting pictures of this guy, it's just, it's great. I love, how blessed we are to be where we are. And, I hope everyone just gets out and go fishing. And I feel really bad for, like, Scotty, dude, you're kind of in ground zero there, buddy. And we think about you a lot. We think about you a lot, man. We really do.
It's terrible. And I'll be honest, I appreciate that because, as I said, it's been tough. I've had a lot of great invites to go fishing, during the hard water season. I'm still getting some great invites in the soft water, but it's just, unfortunately, right now, it's just not the right thing to do. But I can assure you, when it is, it's going to be like a frat party for me. I can't wait to get it all in on one day.
Yeah, like we signed up for a catfish derby that's online, and we didn't go this weekend because I'm like, it's an hour plus drive to go catfishing. Now, I could have gone to Dunnville, which is in my health unit, but the boat ramps are closed. So it's like I'm tired, right? So dude, we went and caught perch. Like,
nice.
At the end of the day, if I don't weigh another catfish in that catfish derby, the money goes to the Thames River Anglers Association to help with their hatchery. I'm happy to make the donation. If I happen to weigh in a catfish or two, like, as much as I love competition, you can't fight COVID, right?
No.
So, we're blessed. We're blessed, man. I'm blessed to have these kids and get to do what we do and make the most of what we have. Right?
Well, you know what? So, we're blessed right back to have you guys share all of your outings and your journeys and your content with us. And all I can say from all of us from CFN, keep up the great work.
Thanks, everyone. We ran over again, and we talked about so much. But Christina, make sure you share that Lake Nipissing fisheries regulation survey in the CFN Fish Off page. Have you seen that yet, Scotty?
No, I haven't.
So they're doing a review of fishing regs in the Zone 11, which is Nipissing.
Yeah.
They got pike regs for review, bass. I'm not going to go through them all. We can do an entire show on it. But they got walleye up for review. They have.
What are they hoping to do with the walleye?
They're going to change the slot. They're going to adjust it just a little bit. Just Scotty. So what's the cutoff right now? Is it 44 centimeters or something like that? What is it?
Oh, in terms of large size, but
okay. So they're going to make it. They're going to make it a range. It's still not a big range. It'll let you might get to eat some more, but it's not. It's not.
It's going to lower it. Like the trying to get the 18-inch fish is just, it's ridiculous. I couldn't. believe how many fish we caught that were under the slot that were targeting.
So you got to go and you got to respond to the survey. So I don't disagree. Even the bass regs, the one reg they're talking about is like open season starting in May. But we've all heard in northern climates, and Gord Piser's talked about this, I think even on CFN, that because they allow bass fishing all year round up in northwestern Ontario, he has seen the bass numbers go down.
Yeah.
Right? We as bass anglers need to conserve our species. So fishing for them during the spawn, even catch and release angling, is not great for them. It's not great. So, but this page, I honestly, I was going to talk about it tonight in detail, but I started scrolling and I'm like, oh, we could do an entire show on this.
Let's do that. Absolutely.
But yeah, there's some in there, but there's also some progressive ideas, right? Like extending the bass season. That's progressive. Like, so walleye fishing, because Nipissing is basically like it's a sanctuary right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, pretty much, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if they allow even a catch and release bass fishery on Nipissing, that gives people something to do, right? Like, so it sucks for walleye anglers, but at least other anglers can go do something, right? So, anyways, you and I need to do a little homework. We'll read that and let's talk about it at an upcoming show. And you have to respond by May 12th, I think, on that. So
I will make sure that I do that, and I encourage everybody in CFN to do the same.
Do it, even if you're not from that area.
Absolutely.
Respond.
It's not often you get the opportunity to do so. They're reaching out to the community and the anglers at heart. Take the time and get involved.
Because if you don't do it and you complain, you have no right to complain if you didn't comment. I will tell everyone about that.
Amen.
Absolutely. Okay, gonna go.
Buddy, thanks so much. Take care, Trevor. Stephanie, good luck with that big hog you're going to catch this week.
Yeah, General Sherman. Yep, he's going down. He's going down this week. Big cats. See you guys.
Take care, guys. Well, we are lucky, as always, to have the Barnucz family with us, teaching us a whole bunch of stuff, some great tips that were shared tonight. And as I said, we had the pleasure of meeting Bryon right off the top, discussing that great giveaway. And make sure if you are interested in getting involved, get in touch with Bryon. He will steer you in the right direction of what it is that he wants to do. But basically, the common denominator of it is he wants to get kids fishing and give back to the fishing community. Big shout out to Jim, of course, for bringing Bryon to us and all of what he does to share with us and our CFN community. Lawrence, of course, he keeps us up to date. He keeps us educated and in the know when it comes to what's going on with our waters, what's going on with our fisheries. And can't thank Lawrence enough for all he does. And of course, as I said, I can't mention enough about the Barnucz family. They're a lot of fun, and it's an honor to sit back and be part of the audience and enjoy it each and every time we see one of their adventures conclude. On that note, I want to remind everybody tomorrow, Mike and I are going to be on CFN Fish Off talking about the details of the upcoming spring edition of our multi-species, the largest Canadian multi-species online tournament, and some of the new things that we have planned, perhaps with the unveiling of it. Wednesday, of course, the BC Fishing Network is going to have yet another podcast, and Cliff and the boys, I'm not sure who they're going to have on, but it sounds like it might be Mike Mitchell. So anybody who knows BC Fishing knows Mike Mitchell. He should be, I think he's the guest on Wednesday. Thursday, we're going to be doing the virtual grand opening with Gord Trask, as Jason mentioned. And then, of course, this weekend is the Muskie Odyssey. I also want to let you guys know that the Q&A with Moose and JP is going to be returning this Sunday on OFC. So stay tuned to that. In the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you Thursday. And we will see you this weekend for the Muskie Odyssey. Have a great night, guys. All the best. Thanks for joining us and for all you do. CFN proud, baby. Yes, sir.